promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar and 1 p.m. in Praia. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and online on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. Success Masra resigns as Prime Minister ahead of Mahamat Déby Itno's inauguration as Chad's elected president. Anti-Cybercrime Commission in Mali to investigate individuals over statements capable of disturbing public order. Mauritania's Constitutional Council publishes the final list of presidential candidates for the June 29 polls, and an independent statutory body in Ghana reviews a decline in the country's crude oil production for the fourth consecutive year.
Production dropped from a high of 71.44 million barrels in 2019 to 48.25 million barrels in 2023, representing an annual average decline of 9.2%.
Stay with us for details of these stories and more.
Here is Abdullahi Hassan with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining us and a warm welcome to our listeners in the Gambia, Ghana, Liberia and Sierra Leone. Let's begin in Chad, where the transitional appointed Prime Minister Success Masra has resigned 24 hours before the inauguration of the President-elect Mahamat Déby Itno. Until his resignation, Masra led the government for almost 5 months. Success Masra's departure is however not unconstitutional, as the law of Chad requires the Prime Minister and his team to be dismissed at the end of an election. A radical opponent of the late president and father of the president-elect Idris Déby Itno, leader of the Transformers, a party joined the transition in December 2023 with the signing of the Kinshasa Agreement after returning to the country. Despite aspiring for the presidency, Success Masra came second in the May 6 presidential election after securing 18.54% of the votes. General Mahamat Déby Itno is being inaugurated to return Chad to democratic rule following his 61% victory that was validated by the Constitutional Council last week. We're to Mali, where the military authorities said to investigate leaders of 2 political organizations for remarks capable of disturbing public order on social media. According to the National Center for the Fight Against Cybercrime prosecutor Adama Coulibaly, these individuals had called for the creation of bodies and institutions parallel to the transitional authorities. These are the establishment of a civil government and the Parliament of National Unity in exile. Francis Boniface has the rest of the details.
At a press briefing, the prosecutor Adama Coulibaly said the 2 organizations, called Panel of Malian Democrats and Convergence for a Civil Transition, had published statements online capable of disturbing public order. The joint action of the groups without official documentation of existence is tantamount to damaging the credibility of the state. Coulibaly explained that the call by the organizations was insightful and sought to encourage citizens to participate in a scheme aimed at undermining state security. Recall last week this political movement called for the establishment of a civil government, a parliament of national unity, and a demonstration against the military authorities in Bamako. This call comes as military authorities received the report of the Inter-Malian Dialogue, whose recommendations highlighted the extension of the transition for an additional 2 to 5 years and the eligibility of Colonel Assimi Goïta in the next presidential election, among others. If found guilty, the leaders of these political groups will be prosecuted for an attack on state security, incitement to violence, and crime through an information system, said Adama Coulibaly, who cited a December 2019 Cybercrime Law 056.
Francis Boniface with that report. In Mauritania, the candidates for the June 29 presidential elections are known as the Constitutional Council publishes the final list. 7 candidates in total, including incumbent Mohamed Ould Ghazouani, were approved by the council. Etia Tisu completes the story.
Seeking re-election, Mauritanian President Mohamed Ould Ghazouani is up against 6 other contenders in the June polls. The Constitutional Council did not accept the candidacy of the former president, Mohamed Ould Abdelaziz, who is serving a 5-year jail term for embezzlement. A source close to the former head of state said Aziz was allowed out of jail last week to submit his candidacy, but it was rejected by the council for having an insufficient number of sponsors. The opposition has accused the government of imposing such a rigid process purposely to eliminate strong opponents. With Aziz out of the picture, Ghazouani, 67, tops the list as a favorite ahead of the presidential elections in a country of 4.5 million people. Also vying for the presidency this season include the leader of the Islamic opposition party, Hamadi Ould Said El Mokhtar, and human rights activist Biram Ould Daoud Abed, who came second behind Ghazouani in the 2019 vote. Mauritania was hit by a series of coups from 1978 to 2008 before the 2019 election marked the first transition between two elected presidents.
Eche Atisu with that report.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
We are live on wadr.org. Police in Plateau State, north central Nigeria, has deployed patrol teams to Zurak, a mining community in Wasi local government area of the state where bandits killed several people. The gunmen in their numbers arrived at the village on motorcycles around 5 p.m. on Monday and started shooting sporadically. The Transition Implementation Committee chairman of Wasi, Hamisu Anani, told local media that the bandits were escaping from operations by a combined team of security forces last month, would push them towards the community. But residents denied this account, arguing that the government attacked these border communities because they failed to pay their usual tax. Speaking to WADR, Riwang Tengwang, a journalist in Jos, Plateau State capital, confirms the death toll, as well as explains the security breaches responsible for the frequent killings of civilians in the state.
The information we got from the community is 42 persons were killed. Now, but the police said after the attack that the Commissioner of Police in Plateau State has directed the commander of Lantang Area Command to relocate to Wasi with immediate effect. And there has been a massive deployment of police to the area. Because Wasi is in southern Plateau State, and particularly the Zurak area is bordering Taraba, Bauchi, and part of Nasarawa. So with what has happened, it is very clear that it is a banditry attack. But the huge question has been, most of these villages, despite knowing that yes, bandits have frequently attacked, there's no presence of security in most of these villages. If you go to the villages there, you will not find any security presence. Now, even the special task force that are operating in Plateau State, most of these villages, the interior villages you go, you hardly get them.
Riwang Tengwang is a journalist based in Jos, the Plateau State capital. Now we remain in Nigeria because the judiciary arm of government has emphasized the need for a comprehensive review of the adjudication process related to the 2023 general elections. Speaking at the workshop for judges in Abuja, the nation's capital, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Olukayode Ariwola, highlighted the challenges faced during the election petitions. As WADR's Usman Omar reports, the judges agreed at the workshop to address the inadequacies and implement new methods to ensure a more successful adjudication process in the future.
According to the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Olukayode Ariola, the 2023 election petitions threw up new challenges at the judiciary, which he says underscores the need for a review of the processes to prepare for future elections.
The kind of attention and emotions attached to these political matters in this country have collectively made our work more excruciating, painstaking, and sometimes endangering as we are occasionally exposed to threats, especially from some elements within the political fold.
On her part, the president of the Court of Appeal, Justice Monica Dongba Mensem, identified sections of the Nigerian Constitution and the Electoral Act that would require a legislative review in preparation for the 2027 general elections.
For a desire that was not properly expressed and appreciated, since the Electoral Act is sui generis, the electoral process and the proceedings particularly is sui generis, but we still fall back on the provisions of the Evidence Act, and we need to marry these provisions so that we can have a clear path.
The 2023 general elections in Nigeria were marked by various controversies, including allegations of electoral irregularities by the opposition political parties and technological failures, with the newly introduced electronic transmission of results being the most contentious issue. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
Away from Nigeria, an independent statutory body in its 2023 annual report disclosed a continued decline in Ghana's crude oil production for the fourth consecutive year. The Public Interest and Accountability Committee (PIAC) highlights a decrease from 71.44 million barrels in 2019 to 48.25 million barrels in 2023. This indicates an average annual decline of 9.2%. From Accra, Naderi Tete reports.
The Public Interest and Accountability Committee in its 2023 annual report expressed concerns about the decline, which they have attributed to, among others, a lack of investment in the area, global slump in oil prices, and drop in production for all oil fields. Here is chairperson of PIAC, Emerita Professor Adefio Shandoff.
Crude oil production declined for the fourth consecutive year in 2023. Production dropped from a high of 71.44 million barrels in 2019 to 48.25 million barrels in 2023, representing an annual average decline of 9.2%.
The committee emphasized the importance of the government and relevant regulatory bodies taking necessary action to reverse the decline in production within current fields and to facilitate investment in untapped fields.
Government and the relevant regulatory bodies should take the appropriate steps to reverse production decline on existing oil fields and ensure investments in unexploited fields.
It was also discovered that the total proceeds from the Jubilee Oil Holdings Limited liftings received in 2023, amounting to over $70 million, were not paid into the Petroleum Holding Fund for the second consecutive year, a practice PIAC has consistently kicked against. The Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, is an independent statutory body mandated to promote transparency and accountability in the management of petroleum revenues in Ghana. For WADR, Nadiri Tete, Accra.
A 3-day regional technical conference on school feeding based on local products is underway in Dakar, the Senegalese capital. Jointly organized by the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, and the World Food Programme, WFP, the conference brings together researchers, agriculturists, academics, parliamentarians, and financial experts from the sub-region and beyond. Themed legislating change, funding futures, the gathering will allow for the exchange of best practices and institutional models, identify solutions to support national commitments, and monitor progress. However, since the launch of the school feeding program designed to help disadvantaged communities meet their basic needs while promoting sustainable development and reducing poverty in West and Central Africa, has it worked? Evelyn Eti is WFP's Senegal Deputy Regional Director.
What we have seen more and more, we have governments who are engaging in this. Lots of governments are having it as policies now, and we are seeing more countries in our region. It's quite good to know that at least all 20 countries have fed kids. We fed 22.8 million kids last year. So this is really amazing. But more and more there is the engagement, and as we see, as time goes on, we see governments have the policies, but then they have to be legalized. They have to go into legal practice. So you see we have now parliamentarians who have been involved, which is very good, but funding remains a problem across the board. More and more we are encouraging governments to engage with this and try to take the school feeding in their hands, but also to incorporate homegrown school feeding. Homegrown school feeding is very good because we are not only feeding the kids, we are not only working on their nutrition and on their health, but as well, we are working on the human capital here in Africa, which is a problem. So if we improve on the human capital, we improve on local purchase, we are also working on sustainable development goals in Africa across our regions.
That was Evelyn Eddy, WFP's Senegal Deputy Regional Director. You are listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal, and live on WADR.org. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Success Masra resigns as Prime Minister ahead of Mohamed Déby Itno's inauguration as Chad's elected president. Anti-Cybercrime Commission in Mali to investigate individuals over statements capable of disturbing public order. Mauritania's Constitutional Council publishes the final list of presidential candidates for the June 29 polls. An independent statutory body in Ghana reviews a decline in the country's crude oil production for the fourth consecutive year. Still ahead in the news, the menace of human trafficking jumps in countries of the Gulf of Guinea due to insecurity and political instability. We also have the press review, guest interview, and sports update. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Many thanks for staying with us. Elsewhere in Togo, the population are crying out to the authorities to fix the deteriorating electricity crisis affecting the whole country. The power cuts began early this year and have since remained a daily occurrence, disrupting commercial activities and causing heavy losses. The government has, however, blamed the situation on the shortage of natural gas supply. Sankle Janko has more.
Regional capitals, including Lomé, are experiencing frequent load shedding, a situation that began at the start of the year and has remained persistent. Daily commercial activities and businesses have been challenged by the development. The Togo Consumers League confirms this trend and speaks of long, untimely power cuts, which are causing enormous damage to consumers with heavy economic repercussions. President of the Consumer League, Emmanuel Sogaji, said, and I quote, "Electricity-dependent enterprises are slowing down. Depriving someone of electricity today in the digital age means no activity is possible." According to him, private sector activities such as bars and shopkeepers are suffering severe losses because the cold chain for frozen products is no longer guaranteed. We believe that the state must take appropriate measures to prevent this situation from continuing, Sogaji concluded. In response, the Togolese government, Minister of Energy and Mines, Mila Aziable, explained the power crisis, which she attributed to the shortage in supply of natural gas. In recent times, Benin and Togo, among other countries in the sub-region, have been affected by this shortage.
Sankle Janko reporting. Countries in the Gulf of Guinea are experiencing a surge in human trafficking, particularly of women and young girls. This revelation was part of the findings of a project first initiated in 2019 by Sandra Perrot, the Migration, Gender and Human Rights Chief at an NGO Expertise France, at a retreat by migration experts on Tuesday on the banks of the Ebrid Lagoon. The different dynamics of this trend were equally discussed. Human trafficking is the third major organized crime in the world after arms and drugs. Ogebirika completes the story.
The project, initiated in 2019, covers Côte d'Ivoire, Benin, Ghana, Nigeria, Guinea, and Togo. The head of the project, Sandra Perrot, discussed the characteristics of this scourge, including child trafficking, sexual exploitation, organ trade, domestic servitude, and baby factories. Perrot is alarmed that this represents a very worrying reality in the regional landscape due to insecurity and political instability affecting the sub-region. The project results show 3,549 victims of trafficking who were identified, supported, and referred to the appropriate assistance services, with 67% being women. In order to fight the menace, 1,530 actors in the criminal justice chain have been strengthened, as well as 1,048 officials from the internal security forces, said Sandra Perrot. The French migration expert also revealed efforts made by authorities in the Gulf of Guinea countries with increasing trend of human trafficking. In Guinea, the state adopted an anti-trafficking law in 2024, while a state support mechanism for the care of victims has been deployed in Ghana as well as in Côte d'Ivoire. In Togo, a national anti-trafficking commission was created.
Ogebirika filed that report.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
Well, let's now join WEDR's Sankule Jankwin Banjul for a brief of major and banner headlines on the front pages of the Gambian national dailies.
It's another Wednesday, and welcome to another edition of the Press Review coming to you from Banjul, the Gambia. And let's begin today's Press Review with the Standard newspaper, and the lead story on the Standard newspaper reads, Report warns deep political tension in 2026 with the photo of President Adama Barrow as a front page. Assembly lambast UTG's management of funds threatens to block subvention. Gambia echoes parliamentarians. Orders discuss regional security with the photo of Billy J. Tunkara, who is the majority leader of the National Assembly of the Gambia. Court admits crime scene report in PIU shooting case. For that involved Usainu Bojang, who allegedly shot 3 police officers who were on duty, 2 of whom were reported dead. Gambia gets new football coach. John McKinstry has been appointed as the new head coach of the Gambia national football team, and that is the Scorpions. Let's move on to the Point newspaper. The lead story on the Point newspaper reads, Presidential convoy crash claims life of policeman. That is the lead story on the Point newspaper with a photo of a damaged car. It is reported that an advance team of President Adama Barrow was involved in an accident which claimed the life of a police. 3 other people are reportedly in critical conditions in a hospital in the provinces of the Gambia. This one reads, CDS warns Gambia won't harbor anyone to destabilize Senegal. CDS, that's Momar Cham, Chief of Defense Staff of the Gambia Armed Forces, made a strong warning that the Gambia won't be a harbor for anyone who tries to destabilize neighboring and sister country, and that is Senegal. No readable fingerprint analysis on pistol used in alleged PIU's shooter incident. That's what a witness says according to this report. This involves, of course, the trial of Usainu Bojang in the High Court, who has been accused of killing police officers. According to this witness, there is no readable fingerprint analysis on the pistol used by the alleged shooter Usainu Bojang. Witness provides substantive documents to inquiry. Now, let's move on to the final newspaper for today, and that is The Voice newspaper. And the lead story on The Voice newspaper reads, NAM reverts to Senegalese government for release of Gambian detainees. This is Bakary Badji, the National Assembly for Fonyi Bintang Karanai. He has reportedly reverted to Senegalese government for release of Gambian detainees. And finally, Professor Sen says FGM is practiced to control women's capacity for sexual feelings. I'm afraid these are the major stories making headlines on Gambian dailies, and it's back to you in the studio.
Many thanks, Sankule Janko.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Our guest segment this afternoon is a focus on the recent bandit attack in Plateau State, north-central Nigeria, where dozens of civilians were killed. Joining us from Jos, the Plateau State capital, is Dr. Melvin Eje, a security expert and member of a security committee that seeks to restore peace across the state.
Their invasion was a reprisal attack to the ongoing clearance operation headed by the Operation Safe Haven and DSS, the Nigerian Police Force, and other security agencies in the community. And Vigilant Group, it was a clearance operation that is ongoing in that community to rid the community of this banditry attack. The forest, around Zwarak general area in Wasa local government, and the Banlala general area, that as it is dominated by these bandits who live in those forests. They actually find a way to this forest through other thick forests across that general area. Hence, there's an operation going on to clear them. So it was after the attack and clearance operation that these bandits got angry and started taking revenge on innocent communities who are just living on their own. So I think this should be condemned by all members of the public.
Dr. Melvin, is there a possibility anywhere, because there have been discussions around this, that there is a shift of banditry from other north-central states like Niger and Nasarawa towards Plateau?
I agree absolutely with you. There's a shift, there's a possibility. There are movement of this bandit because there are military operations going on in Niger, going on in Nasarawa, and I think similar operation is already going on in Plateau State to contain this bandit. So what we have in Plateau is a fallout of that operation going on in Niger and Nasarawa State. So we have them relocating to safer areas like Wase local government in Plateau State. However, the military officers we have in Plateau State, I can speak for them, are not people you can daily joke with. They are going to be on top of their game, and I'm sure they will degrade these bandits in no time. This is one attack that is very isolated. It was on their way trying to escape the military onslaught that they attacked this very community. So I think they'll be handled squarely. So I want to commend the Nigerian military for taking this action. They have dominated our forests. They are in Niger State. They are part of Abuja. They are in Nasarawa State, trying to ensure that they flush out our forests. So it's the fallout of that we have in the Plateau now that is coming up.
Talk about a fallout. Some residents of Plateau State today cry out on the inability of the army or the joint security to protect them, because while they are trying to flush out these insurgents, there is an end to this operation that is been let open or loose, and people still suffer from some of these consequences. So what should authorities do going forward?
The authorities are doing their best, even though there's lots more they need to do by equipping our military, by making sure that logistics is up to date. You see, they can't fight this battle with empty hand. Our soldiers' allowances are not promptly paid. Their morale, even though with the good intention of the service chiefs, the government at the federal government is yet to recover from what the previous government did. I can't stop saying this, because one of the major issues they have is lack of equipment. We don't have the sufficient equipment to police this forest. One, the number of motorcycles that you need for this forest, I don't think we have such numbers. They need to buy more sophisticated desert-prone gadgets that can go into the desert unfettered. Our conventional hillocks, conventional vehicles can't access this forest because they are very deep forests that you don't need hillocks to go in there. You don't need a vehicle to go in there. So I think government need to get more equipment. Government need to get more logistics and encourage our members of our armed forces. But we trust God that this thing is going to finish. It's a matter of time.
That was Dr. Melvin AJ, a security expert. In the world of sports, the Gambia has appointed Jonathan McKenzie as the new football coach for the national team, the Scorpions. The 38-year-old Northern Irishman's appointment was announced by the Minister of Youth and Sport following a recruitment and selection process in collaboration with the National Sports Council and the Gambia Football Federation, GFF. He's expected to sign a 2-year contract and will begin his new role on the 1st of June. The UEFA A license pro holder is expected to lead the Gambia's qualification for the Africa Cup of Nations 2025 and 2026 World Cup qualifiers. And that's how we end this edition of Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Maudo Juf and Christian Wikidi for the technical support. Do interact with us via social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, WADR English Service. I am Abdullahi Hassan. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening